Hello. So you want to change an oil pan on a Subaru 2.5 single overhead cam. This particular vehicle is a 2009 Subaru Legacy with a 2.5 single overhead cam. Well, as we got into it, we were like, oh man, we got to drop the K-frame. We got to remove the exhaust, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, half that's true. First thing you're going to want to do is loosen up your oil dipstick tube, just so when it's time to put it back all together in your new oil pan on, that you have some movement to get the oil dipstick tube back in your new oil pan. That engulfed taking the belt off the AC. This is the AC right here. I'm looking at her. Zoom around. That's the AC. There was 2 bolts down here, 1, and then 2 back here. This back one, they're 12 millimeters. The back one was a little difficult to get at, and we were like, oh shoot, we got to remove the intake manifold to get that. You don't. You just get an open end wrench on there, and something to get that 1 bolt back there loose, and 1 more here. Once you got that free, then there's 1 more AC compressor bolt right underneath there, and then this will be free to move around, so you can get your dipstick tube bolt out that's bolted down underneath this bracket. Underneath that bracket is a dipstick tube bolt. Now bear with me. We had to take the intake tube off just so we didn't want to stretch it when we're lifting the engine, because we ended up lifting the engine. I'll wait to talk more until the car's up in the air. All right, so when we looked at the oil pan, you know, it's pretty tucked up in there. You think you got to take off the subframe, the K-frame that holds the rack and stuff off, but actually the way we did it, and it was a lot faster and I think a lot easier. Well, we dropped the exhaust. That's actually not very hard. You know, you take off your oxygen sensor wires. They're both up top, right on the passenger side of the timing cover up here. Just disconnect those, pull those wires out of their little holsters so that it's free to drop. There's 3 volts here, 1, 2, 3, and you want to get this bolt out here. That way you can get the exhaust free when you drop the main part of the exhaust, which is 3 bolts on each side, or nuts, because they're actually studs and the nuts are supposed to come off, but actually sometimes the studs come out with them. 1, 2, then tucked up there, 3 on that one, and then on this one, you know, 1, 2, and the 3rd one's tucked up there too, right there. I'd tell you what size. I probably would think they're 14s. I didn't take that actually off myself. But anyway, so you take the exhaust off, and then you're wondering, how do I get to these oil pan bolts in the back? Well, there's motor mount bolts. There's only 2 on each side. 1, 2, same thing on the other side. 1 and, 2. And once you have the engine free and your air box pipe off, you know, just so you don't stretch it out, when you lift the engine, there's two little things sticking out. Sorry, because the exhaust is on, it's a little difficult to see. But these guys right here, there's 2 of them. Well, you just put your jack underneath there, and start lowering your car onto and the engine onto whatever you have, a jack or a piece of wood or something, and then the engine will lift up out of the motor mounts on each side. When you lift it up, it starts gaining clearance in between the back of the oil pan and the K-frame. And once you lift it up just enough, you'll be able to get to all 10mm bolts for the oil pan all the way around. Once again, I said the exhaust isn't really that difficult. Make sure you have some gaskets on hand in case yours are ripped to shreds. These ones actually were pretty new, so we just coated them with some gasket prep silicone, the high heat one. But yeah, you know, you got to get your oil dipstick tube, and you got to be able to put it in here. Make sure you have some new O-rings and you oil this up real well before you put it in. This part, if it doesn't actually line up because it's an aftermarket pan or something, you are okay to hit it with a rubber hammer to bend it the way you want, you know, up, down. Well, basically up is mostly, but yeah, the oil dipstick tube is nice to have it free. It goes through the hose from the oil pan up through the middle there, up to that bolt that I told you about removing up top. And that's how you change a Subaru Legacy oil pan without getting into it really hard. You know, you think, oh, removing the exhaust and then removing the motor mounts is a little difficult of a job. It really isn't. It really wasn't. And that's about it. All I could say is good luck to you. Our oil pan was rusting out right at the dipstick. Where the dipstick receiver onto the oil pan, it was all rusted right there, and that's where it kept leaking out. They gave us a cork gasket. When we took off our oil pan, it was all silicone. That's probably factory. I assume the silicone all over is factory. But we used the cork. We didn't over tighten our bolts, so that we don't want it to smush out or ruin the gasket. But yep, good luck. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.